with NAMA, and NAMA is sponsoring this complimentary webinar on how to build a high-performing sales team with leadership expert Jeb Blount. I would like to introduce our speaker, Jeb Blount. He is a leading expert on leadership and human behavior in the workplace. He helps companies, teams, and individuals transform their organizations and accelerate performance through intense focus on interpersonal relationships. He is the author of 5 books, including People Follow You, The Real Secret to What Matters Most in Leadership. Jeb has more than 20 years of experience leading and developing high-performing sales teams. He is also the founder of Sales Gravy, the most visited sales employment website on the planet. He publishes Sales Gravy magazine, which is read by 270,000 sales leaders and sales professionals each month. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Jeb.
Thank you, Joanne. As Joanne said, I've got years and years of experience with managing sales teams and leading teams of all stripes. And one of the things that I found over a 25-year career is that leading salespeople is truly the hardest job in sales. Because of this, we're going to walk you through a series of steps that can help you build a high-performing sales team. This is a 1-hour, 45-minute to 1-hour seminar, so we really won't be able to capture anything. So it's really going to be more of a general overview. But we will have time for questions at the end. You'll notice that in your sidebar of the webinar, there's an opportunity or a question area if you can write down questions. We're monitoring that. So write down those questions, and at the end of the webinar, I'll answer those questions for you one at a time. Leading salespeople is hard. And the reason why it's hard is that salespeople are not like any other employee. It's easy to lead accountants. It's easy to lead managers and operations folks, but it's very hard to lead salespeople. One of the reasons is they're just different. Salespeople operate differently than most other folks, and you can see it in the eyes of your people who are not salespeople when they see the sales folks walk in the door. They don't get them. Salespeople tend to be prima donnas. They turn over a lot faster than other people. Typical salesperson is going to last 2 to 3 years, and they're going to be finding a new job. They're demanding. They ask of you things that other employees don't ask of you, and so knowing that and accepting that makes it a lot easier to lead them. Now, leading salespeople means that they're willing to follow you, and not because they have to, not because they're paid to, because they want to. And this is one of the things about salespeople, is that salespeople and the really, really good salespeople don't have to work for you. They can work anywhere. The demand for salespeople is massive, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But if you can get salespeople to follow you because they want to, because they're willing to, because they like to, you can get immense productivity out of them, and you can keep the good ones around for a long period of time. Now, when we talk about leadership, a lot of times leadership and managing and coaching and these terms tend to get sort of wrapped into each other. But I'd like to define these things differently so you understand where you fit. And this is about coaching salespeople. But you also have to be a leader, and leading is shaping the workplace. As a leader, a sales manager, as a business owner, as a CEO, as an operations manager, wherever you are, leading is shaping what the workplace looks like, what the environment is, what the vision is, where you're going. Important for salespeople. Salespeople like to know where they're going, and they want to know that they're doing worthwhile work. Managing is shaping the work. Managing is managing the processes and the systems and the day-to-day activity, and it's making sure that everything stays on track and everything is working the way it should be. And coaching is shaping people. And for salespeople, this is huge. Being a coach of salespeople allows you to shape and develop your sales force so that they go out on the street and they perform for you. There's nothing in the world that salespeople respond better to than coaching. Now think of it this way. One of the things that we like to say is that sales professionals are the elite athletes of the business. If you think of it like this, there are 2 types of people in your business. There are people who sell, and there is everyone else. If you were an NFL team or a NBA team, the salespeople would be on the floor playing, and everyone would be in supporting roles. So the one thing that every elite athlete has is a coach. They all have a coach in their corner. The coaches can see things that they can't see. Coaches put them in position to win. It's happening now. You'll watch the Final Four this weekend, and you'll see that there's a coach there, and they've got a little board, and they're telling the players where to go. They're getting the players into places where they can win. They shape those players and develop them. And this webinar is about how can you shape your salespeople. Now, one of the interesting things about leadership, and this is a survey that was done through Personality and the Fate of Organizations, is that 75% of the workforce reports that their boss is the most stressful part of their job. Now, think about it like this. If you lead salespeople and you are the most stressful part of that salesperson's job, when they walk out the door to go call on prospects, the prospects that will grow your business, the prospects that will help you hit your sales and profit numbers, if they're thinking about you as the most stressful part of their job, they're likely not to sell as much. And when we did surveys, when we were writing People Follow You, and we were doing surveys in the workplace to sort of try to tie back why the workforce looks at their boss and says, the boss is stressful to me. The one thing that we found that was common was it was because a lot of bosses are inconsistent. And the thing about salespeople is the salespeople need consistency. They need a consistent boss who shows up and does consistent systems and processes with them every day. When we were interviewing salespeople for People Follow You, and we would ask them about their boss, here's what they would typically say when they were really stressed out by their boss. They would say, I don't know which boss is going to show up. I don't know which person is going to be there that day. And the thing about sales leadership is it's fluid. You wake up in the morning, you go to work, and there are different things hitting. You've got a customer problem, you've got a prospect that's not closing, you've got a salesperson that turns over, you've got a new salesperson that's starting. And so the key is that you build a sales management system around that allows you to do consistent work with your salespeople every single day. Now, there are two types of leaders that we look at when we look at especially with sales managers. There are what we call People Follow You leaders, and there's mediocre managers. Now, mediocre managers, especially sales managers, get bogged down in things like administration, tracking activity, completing reports. They focus on policy. They micromanage activities, and they devote a disproportionate amount of their time to approving actions and holding post-action inquiries. They spend a lot of time with expense reports. Mediocre managers are the managers that if you own a business and you see your sales manager, they're the ones in the office. Now, People Follow You leaders, the sales managers that produce consistent results day in and day out. And we met sales managers in really, really tough organizations that had been leading there for years and years and years, in a world where, by the way, the average tenure for a sales leader in today's marketplace is about 18 months. We met sales managers that were consistently there 10 years, 20 years, delivering results. And here's what they did. Their number one focus was getting their salespeople in position to win. And they did that with a consistent sales management system. They placed greater emphasis on coaching and mentoring their salespeople, and they focused on planning and strategy specifically with sales activities to make sure their salespeople were standing in front of the right prospect at the right time, delivering the right message. They did this, when we talk about a sales management system, they did this with a foundation of training, helping their salespeople acquire knowledge, observing and analyzing what the salespeople were doing. In fact, they spent most of their time watching their salespeople, either on the phone, in the field, in front of prospects, in meetings or what have you. They observed their prospects, and then they gave them feedback through coaching and follow-up. And they did that to help the salespeople both apply the knowledge that they had trained them and also to help hold them accountable and to recognize their achievement. Now, their system of sales management looked kind of like this. And this is something that when in our big coaching certification training that we walk through, and we help our leaders design this around their particular industry. But most sales managers have a system that looks kind of like this. They do weekly training meetings, generally on a Monday morning. So on Monday mornings, they're getting their sales organization together, their salespeople together, and these are small groups. This is sales management groups, and they're teaching them something. They go over the numbers, what have you, but their main focus on Monday morning is teaching people something and leading, setting the tone for the workplace that week. Every day they do daily huddles. They get their sales team together, and maybe it's 15 minutes, but they set the tone for the day. And they have a very specific process for their daily huddles. They do weekly one-on-ones. And with a weekly one-on-one, depending on the company, the industry, the KPIs, key performance indicators, they're sitting down with each rep one-on-one, and they're walking through those opportunities and the issues the rep deals with, and they're using that time for coaching. They also do daily field rides. Now, the best sales managers, the sales managers that have the best sales teams, are always in the field with their salespeople. In their minds, they're not actually working unless they're out with a salesperson. We just recently did a consulting gig with a company out in Arizona, and they had a sales manager, and the sales manager was rather new and was having a difficult time. He was not necessarily doing what he should be doing, kind of like a lot of new sales managers. So we went out and took a look at what he was doing, and what he was doing is sitting in his office all day long, calling the salespeople, asking them what they had sold. And our recommendation was go get in the field with them, spend 4 days a week, and don't bounce from rep to rep, because a lot of times what sales managers do instead of doing the field ride is they go on closing appointments. So they only spend time with the rep in the closing appointment, and in that particular closing appointment, they're doing most of the work. Instead, we asked the sales manager to go out and spend the entire day. His sales doubled in 3 weeks. And they doubled in 3 weeks because all of a sudden the salespeople were getting coaching, they were getting hands-on. They actually were able to connect with this gentleman because they were spending time with him in the field, and they saw that he cared about them. And we taught him something called a pre- and post-call routine, so making sure that in the calls he wasn't taking over the calls. So in other words, in his field ride, he was finding out what the objective was before the call, establishing up front what the role he was going to play, whether he was going to observe the call, do the call so he could demonstrate the call, or participate in the call, and which happens a lot of time with tenured reps. And then afterwards, they would coach what happened in the call, what went well, what can we improve on. And what happens at the end of the day, if you're doing consistent field rides, part of the system is providing written feedback. You would say, hey, Jeb, this was a great day. I saw you do these things. You did this well, this well, this well. We agreed that there are 2 or 3 things that you're going to work on. I'll be back with you next Thursday, and we'll follow up on that to see how you're doing. Now, the very best sales managers take all of that in account. They've got a system, but they're also using what we call a goal sheet. And if you go to salesgravy.com and you go to free sales stuff, you can get the 2012 goal planning guide. It's free. You can download it right off the website, and it's a guide for goal sheeting. And what goal sheeting is, and this is part of positioning people to win, is the best sales managers recognize that, yeah, the company can have quotas and you can have activity targets, but it doesn't really mean anything for your top salespeople unless they can tie it back to something that they want. So top sales managers sit down with their salespeople, generally on field rides and in one-on-ones, and they're asking them the question, what do you want? What's important to you? They get to know them at the base level. And then they focus their time and attention on helping them tie their sales activity targets and goals back to the things that they want out of their personal life or career. And they help them get those things. And the cool thing about that is that if you help your salespeople get what they want, they have a tendency to help you get what you want, which is more sales. And then the final part of your sales management system is a follow-up process. And the follow-up process so that you can follow up on training, follow up on coaching, follow up on activity targets, follow up on any kind of feedback that you've given them, or activity or development opportunities that you've given them, and there's a system for doing that. And this is probably the hardest part of leadership, is having a follow-up system. But with that system of sales management, it gives sales managers the opportunity to be consistent day in and day out, which reduces the stress the salespeople feel. It helps them develop, and it moves the whole organization forward. And it's that system that you put in place consistently day in and day out that works. Now, all of that said, why should you pay attention to this? Because maybe you're sitting there right now thinking, I'm going to get off this webinar. I've got better things to do with my life. Well, we conduct at Sales Gravy every year a sales hiring trend survey. We surveyed this year 21,000 HR managers, VPs of sales, directors of sales, and sales managers. And you can get a free copy of that at saleshiringtrends.com. One of the things that we found in the 2012 survey was that 97% of companies state that their organization will maintain or increase sales headcount. A significant number of those companies, 63%, are planning to increase the size of their sales forces in the near term, while only 3% plan to decrease. Now, what does that mean to you? Well, if 97% of the companies are going to either to maintain or increase their sales headcount, to maintain your headcount in a 30 to 40% turnover area, or if you're 10 or 20%, that means you got to go hire people just to maintain. And if 63% are going to increase their headcount, that means they have budgeted the payroll for those folks. You're going to see a lot more pressure on the marketplace for top salespeople to jump jobs. And top salespeople don't leave companies because of compensation issues. They don't leave for money. They don't leave for any of those things, and the surveys consistently back that up. Top salespeople leave companies because they leave managers, because they leave a chaotic environment. They leave a place where they don't feel appreciated. And having a sales management system based on a foundation of leadership allows you to keep those folks. And trust me, you've got companies right now that are trying to take your salespeople away from you. The least expensive way to move your sales organization forward is to maintain the people that you have and retain them. The most expensive way is to turn them all over and to constantly be looking for new people. And it's hard to grow when you constantly have new people coming into your door. Now, another reason to be concerned, and the reason why this is important, is if you think about the availability of sales talent. 81% of the HR managers, VPs of sales that we surveyed have some level of concern, either significant or moderate, about the availability of sales talent. Now, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, though, makes this even more onerous. The available talent, salespeople, people who want to be in sales who are coming into the market between now and 2019, is only going to grow at about 1%, while the availability of sales jobs is going to grow industry dependent around 14%. So when you think about that and you think about the companies that are looking for salespeople, the ability to go out and find top salespeople and get them to your organization is going to become very, very hard. And if you're out there looking for them, you want to have a great environment for salespeople to come in so you can attract that top talent, and you want to make sure that when you get them in there, you keep them productive and you keep them happy so that they stick around. Now, let's take a look at sales management systems. So a sales management system, train, observe, coach, follow up, within a framework of training meetings, huddles, one-on-ones, field rides, follow-up process, goal sheeting. You got to add leadership to that. And with what we've done over the years, and especially with the People Follow You project, is we interviewed more than 300 leaders in the marketplace. And we took a look at the very best leaders. Now, I'm not talking about the Steve Jobs of the world or the John F. Kennedys. I'm talking about real live people that are in the business place today who are working and leading salespeople, and are frankly some of the best people out there in their companies. We found that there's basically 5 key things, 5 levers that these leaders pull. And a lever, as you know, is a tool that, placed on a fulcrum, allows you to move very heavy loads with minimal effort. And the People Follow You levers are levers that help you move people with minimal effort. The levers are put people first, connect, position people to win, build trust, and create positive emotional experiences. And first is putting your people first. The very best leaders put their people first. They put them first in everything that they do. And the reason they put them first is because when you put your people first, they trust you. And when people trust you and they believe that you have their best interests at heart, they're willing to pay attention to you. The best leaders did this because they actually like their people. Now, this is tough with salespeople, this concept of liking people. And it's also tough in a diverse environment. In today's business world, most leaders really don't get to choose the people that they work with. And we live in a world where people come to the workplace, not just different races and creeds and religions and opinions, but they have different political thought processes. They have different social economic backgrounds. They have different age groups. They have different education. And the very best leaders, one of the traits is they learn to like their people. And how do you do that? Well, you focus on the things about those people that you can like. Look, it's really, really easy to like people who are just like you. But the best leaders have people surrounding them in their talent circle that are nothing like them. And the reason that they have those people around them that way is because they found ways to like those folks and use their talents in the right way. And when you like your people, when you actually genuinely find interest in them, they'll like you back. Be kind. For me, being a leader is sort of like playing poker. So all of your salespeople are around you at a table, and you're about to deal out the cards, and you look at them and you say, no, I'm going to keep all 52 cards. Who's going to win? Of course you are. If you're holding all 52 cards, you're always going to win, and we know that. A lot of leaders don't believe that. They think that they have to get into battles with their people, but the reality is, at the end of the day, you're going to win. So the best leaders know that, and they show kindness when they're leading their people, especially in difficult situations, because there's sometimes where, especially, you're going to have to let somebody go, or especially in sales, or you're going to put them on a performance plan or what have you. They're kind. Be authentic. Authenticity. Be yourself. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to be their best friend and it's a fraternity party, but it means that people need to see that you're human. The very worst leaders that we met and interviewed and encountered were the leaders that were more like cardboard. They treated everybody exactly the same. The very, very best leaders were the leaders who allowed other people in and allowed them to see that they were real people. That doesn't mean that they weren't tougher. That doesn't mean that they weren't demanding. That doesn't mean that they didn't ask a lot of their people. In fact, probably more so with those folks than the people who were more cardboard. But they let them know that they were people. And finally, lead with the golden rule. I can't tell you how many leaders that we met in the process of building people follow you, that they would complain about their boss, and they would complain about all the things that their boss did that they hated, and then we would go interview their people, and their people were complaining about the exact same things about them. Golden rule simply says, lead people the same way you would want to be led, and if you do that, you can't go wrong. Now, one of the questions that we ask all the time, especially for sales managers, is what do leaders get paid for? What do sales managers get paid for? And the reality is that sales managers get paid for what their salespeople achieve. And if you can recognize that, and if you can make that your mantra, when I look at my paycheck, it's what my salespeople delivered, then you understand that you need your salespeople more than you do. And if you understand that you need your people more than you do, then you'll put them first. And a really simple way of looking at that is that anything that you do as a sales manager that gets in the way of a salesperson selling, doing their job, which is selling, that's the one thing we pay them for, then stop doing it because it's hurting your paycheck. This is the one thing, if you accept this one principle, you can get off the webinar, move on, go do something else, one thing. As a sales manager, you get paid for what your people achieve. Therefore, you need them more than they need you. Now, one of the other things that we ran into with sales leaders is this concept of high achiever versus the normal employee. And if you came to the coffee show that we did with NAMA, we spent a lot of time talking about this. There's actually a video of that up on YouTube right now. But basically, here's the thing. The reason why you're in a leadership position, in fact, the reason why you took the time out of your day to get on this webinar is because you're not normal. You're a high achiever. High achievers are willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do. They're willing to work harder, longer. They're willing to sacrifice. But most people aren't high achievers. Most people want to go to their job. They want to go out and sell some stuff. They want to earn a commission, and they want to go home, and they want to coach t-ball or do whatever normal people do. And one of the things just to keep in mind is when you look at the people that are working for you and you're frustrated because they don't see things the way you see them, and they don't react to things the way you react to them, and they don't own things the way you own them, is understanding that they're not like you. But as long as you try to manage those people as high achievers, the way you manage yourself, you will frustrate them and frustrate yourself. But if you can step into their shoes, let's go back to rule number one, you get paid for what they do, not what you do. If you can step in their shoes and work with them based on where they are and who they are, all of a sudden you get much better results. And that leads to connecting. And connecting is basically just think about someone in your life, and if you could describe them this way, I can tell this person anything. And you have someone in your life just like that. You talk to them about anything. And the reason that you do this is you trust them. There's no judgment. When you talk to them, they listen to you, and they don't judge you. They just listen to you. The thing about being a sales leader or a boss is that when you get that emotional connection, and that is especially true in sales, your salespeople are willing to open up to you. They're willing to tell you what their real issues are. They're willing to tell you things that you need to know to help develop them. If there's a wall, they'll just tell you the things on the surface. There's a script between the boss and between the employee, and everybody sticks to the script. the thing about connecting is that it's about listening. And this is really the thing about coaching. When we looked at the sales management system, train, observe, coach, follow up, observation, that's the place where really most of the work as a manager is done. It's asking questions and listen. Far too managers, especially sales managers, believe that they need to have all the answers. And I would tell you that it's more important to have all the questions. Because if you ask people questions, a lot of times they'll self-correct because they'll figure it out on their own. But also you get the benefit when you're asking questions of actually listening to people. You think about human behavior. By the way, this works in sales and it works in your personal relationships as well. There's one thing that we all want more than anything else. And this is an absolutely insatiable need that we all have, and that need is to feel important. And the most incredible, easiest, fundamentally best way to get anybody to feel important is just to listen to them. And this doesn't matter if it's your wife or your husband or your significant other or your kid. It doesn't matter if it's your employee. It doesn't matter if it's your prospect. If you just listen to people, they feel deeply connected to you. And if you listen, you reward the behavior talk, and you listen deeply. What I mean by listening deeply is you listen with your eyes and your ears and your heart. You'll begin to see the emotional cues that will allow you to coach and develop your people. This also helps you learn how to flex your style. Principle number one in leadership is that you get paid for what your people do, not what you do. Therefore, they're more important than you are. A lot of managers have a style, maybe that everybody should flex to that particular style, but the reality is that you've got all of these folks out there, and they're not going to change their style, and you're likely not going to change your style. If you want them to succeed, you've got to operate at their level. You've got to go in and show them that you can talk to them in their style, and you can work with them with their style. The best managers do that. They're flexible. And they spend their time focusing on behaviors. As they listen, they learn about behaviors, and that allows them to provide regular feedback. And listening is so critical because people are different, and the best managers individualize coaching, and they tailor that to each salesperson. This is the distinction of best coaches. The impact is massive. When you think about it, there's more impact on coaching if it's tailored to the individual needs and style of the person versus on some broad idea of what coaching is. And this is one of the things that we teach in our coaching certification classes. Actually, how do you do this, and how do you pull that coaching together? And when people believe that you care about them as an individual and you treat them as an individual, they're more loyal to you and they're more open to your coaching. In fact, relationships are absolutely critical here. If you think about this, so the relative impact of your relationship with your employee, with your salesperson, how they trust you, is 68% of getting them to listen to your direction, listen to your coaching, listen to your development. And when you build those relationships, and those relationships are built through that listening and that interaction process, all of a sudden you begin to really move your sales team. And this is why we go back to a system of sales management. If you want to tie that together, if you're taking time to do one-on-ones, and that's part of your routine. If you're in the car or in the field, or if it's an inside sales team and you're sitting in their cube or with them next to their desk, that process puts you in a situation where it gives you the opportunity to listen and connect and build those relationships. And the one thing we heard consistently when we interviewed employees at all levels is that the employees that had the best relationships with their managers were the employees that were most loyal, most likely to stay there, and the most productive. Now, the other thing about listening is it offers you the ability to give feedback. Now, the thing about feedback is really interesting, and it's also very, very simple. About half of the performance problems that you have in sales stem from lack of feedback. In other words, if someone's not doing something, you don't just point it out to them. So if you said, we need to be on the phones making appointments from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., and one of your salespeople is walking around and you're sitting there observing that, and you say, hey, let's get on the phone between 8 and 9 a.m. and we can go walk around a little later on, most of the time the person will sit back down and make that call. If you're with your people and you're connected with them, they're more willing to listen to your feedback. If you think about the relationship slide that we just showed you, that slide tells you that when you have that relationship and you provide that simple feedback is, if you did this, I think you would get this. it changes about half of your performance problems. And most of the time that's neutral. Rarely should you give negative feedback, but the neutral feedback is just that. If you did this, I think you'll get this out of it. Positive feedback, of course, is when they do it and they do a great job of it, patting them on the back. Now, we showed you this slide earlier, mediocre managers versus people follow you managers. And the thing about people follow you managers is that people follow you managers consistently position their people to win. They use a sales management system, and that sales management system keeps them on track. They're consistently focusing on the same things day in and day out. They sit down with their people, and they help their people set individual goals. If you go back to that slide about coaching, the best coaches are developing their feedback, they're developing their coaching and development opportunities based on the individual. It allows them to then focus their development opportunities and moving individuals towards their personal goals. That means everything. When sales managers help their salespeople get what they want, those salespeople are extremely loyal. And loyalty, I tell you, in sales means everything, because sales changes every day. There's always going to be bad news. There's always going to be a change of direction. And when you have that loyalty of your sales organization, it's very easy to move them. And that loyalty comes from that individual focus. Now, positioning to win also means removing roadblocks. And removing roadblocks is part of positioning people to win. If salespeople are if they can't get to a close, or if there's someone in your organization getting in the way of taking care of their customer or paperwork or what have you. We ran into a situation where a salesperson didn't have a telephone. The sales manager made sure they had a telephone. If you can do those things and move those roadblocks out of the way, they can spend their time selling. In fact, I had a conversation with our VP of sales this morning, and it was centered around that. It was, stop doing all those things, give it to us, we'll take it, we need you to go sell. Get the roadblocks out of the way so they can win, and the win for salespeople is closing business. And also, in positioning your people to win, this is important, don't take on monkeys. And if you don't know what a monkey is, there's a great book. It's called The 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey. I recommend it for every manager. But there's a fine line between removing roadblocks and taking on other people's problems. And the salespeople that you have are good salespeople. They're good at selling you on doing things for them. So be careful that you don't begin taking over their job and doing things for them. This mostly happens when the salesperson hands you their customer and have you go close it or have you do a lot of the work for it, and they never learn anything in that process. So it's a fine line that you really want to learn as a sales manager. Now, one of the truisms of roadblocks and salespeople who don't close, especially underperforming salespeople, is that people don't do dumb things on purpose. And what I mean by that is that people don't wake up in the morning, go into their bathroom, get ready for work, and before they walk out to work, look in the mirror and go, today I'm just going to go screw a bunch of stuff up. They don't do that. They screw things up because they think they're doing the right thing. And as long as they think they're doing the right thing, i.e. I didn't give them any feedback, they'll keep doing that thing. And as a sales manager, if you look at it that way and you say, why is Joe so dumb? Why is Joe continuing to do these dumb things? You never get into the root cause and figure it out. Maybe it's because he hasn't been trained. Maybe it's because he thinks he's doing the right thing. Maybe he thinks his way of doing things is better than your way of doing things. But whatever the situation may be, focus on that. Sometimes the roadblock isn't an obvious roadblock like someone in the organization getting in the way. It's a mental roadblock or a training roadblock or a behavior roadblock, or someone who came from a different organization that doesn't understand how your organization works. And you always want to spend your time analyzing those things versus throwing your hands up in the air and saying, why is this person not doing their job? Positioning people to win is really where coaching process meets the road. Coaching is ongoing. It's the interaction that you have on the job between you and your salesperson. And it's designed to do this, to diagnose and correct or reinforce behaviors. Diagnose means analyze. So if someone's doing something wrong and you don't take the time to analyze that, instead you say, why is this person doing something so stupid? You never have the opportunity to correct the behavior and then to reinforce the behavior when it's corrected. And the thing about behaviors is a behavior that is rewarded will tend to repeat itself, and a behavior that does not receive a reward will tend not to repeat itself. So if someone is doing something wrong and you can get them to do it right, and then you can be there with them and pat them on the back, you then begin to change those behaviors and you begin to move your entire organization to win. And coaching is always specific to the individual. In our sales certification class, sales coaching certification class, we teach the process for doing this, and we put the structure around it so that as a coach you are consistently getting your salespeople in position to win. And position to win means they're closing business and growing your company. Now, the cool thing about coaching, we talked about this earlier, so the sort of the sales management paradigm is train your salespeople, watch them to make sure that they're learning. If they're not learning, you coach that, and then you follow up to reinforce or change the behavior. Everybody wants to talk about sales training, and I do sales training for a living, so companies hire me to come in and teach their salespeople. But I'll be the first to tell you that if you train your salespeople and you don't back that up with on-the-job coaching in real time, that about 80% of what's trained is lost within the first month, because basically everybody just goes back to their old habits. But when you training and coaching involved in it, in other words, we teach something and the sales managers are in the field with their salespeople reinforcing it, you've got about an 88% retention of that information over time. And so even when you do Monday morning meetings and you do a training session in your Monday morning meetings, if you use the opportunity while you're in the field that week and your one-on-ones and your huddles to consistently reinforce what you trained, people are it's going to stick with them. And I know that if you're on this phone, you've had that frustration of teaching someone something and then you follow up and it's not being done or not being done correctly. And this is why coaching is so important, and learning how to coach. And coaching is not just saying, hey, I'm just coaching people. It is a process. Now, the best leaders build trust. They have a foundation of trust. Without trust, there can be no leadership, especially with salespeople. If your salespeople don't trust you, don't trust your company, don't trust the people in your company, you're toast. They won't sell as hard for you. They won't work as hard for you. They will turn over on a consistent basis. They're emotional creatures. A lot of them are prima donnas. They have to have trust. And trust is simple. Unfortunately, it's so simple, it's not something that we can actually teach in the classroom because it's simply something that you do on the inside. As a leader, it is the willingness to do the right thing all the time, even when people aren't looking. It's being transparent. It's trusting that I can tell people the truth. It's being decisive so that you make quick decisions, even if they're not popular. It's being consistent. And that's where a sales management system comes in play. If people can't trust that which you is going to show up every day, it's very hard for them to believe that they can get in a car with you and they're going to learn something. The one thing you have to remember about trust is, and it's this simple, is that you're always on stage. As a leader, no matter what, people are watching you. So look at it this way. I mean, if you were, let's say you're on your way to work and you some guy ran you off the road or pushed you over and you got really mad and you walked in the office, and when you walked in the office, you walked right through the office, went into your office and slammed the door. Well, all the people in the office are looking at you different ways. I mean, Betty, who was going to ride with you that day, may be thinking maybe it's time for me to go call in sick. I'm kind of feeling like I've got the flu. Joe's thinking, man, he's about to fire me. I didn't get that sale yesterday that I told him I was going to get. Two other people start gossiping about the fact that you're probably going to get fired. Somebody else thinks the company is going to burn down and there's a problem. No matter what, just realize that whatever you're doing, whenever you're doing it, people are watching you and they're making decisions about your behavior based on their own experience. And that judgment may be right sometimes. Somebody might just say, gee whiz, he's probably mad. That's a really bad traffic out there. But you just don't know. So you always have to think about your world as if you are in a theater and you're on stage and all your people are watching you, even when they're not there. And always think about doing the right thing. I repeat this, without trust, there is no leadership. If your salespeople don't trust you, it's going to be extremely, extremely difficult to ever move them. Now, one of the places that you can create immense harm is in face-to-face communication. Now, if you're working your system of sales management, right, so you're doing all of those things, one-on-ones or what have you, then you can cause some incredible harm, even though, and this is the cool thing about communication, this connecting piece, this relationship piece, the most effective form of communication is face-to-face. It is having a conversation. And these days with the type of technology we have, sometimes that's on the phone, sometimes that's on Skype, could be a video call, but it's effective. But the place where you can cause the most harm is face-to-face. And unfortunately, we don't have time today or the resources today to teach you all of the things that you need to know about face-to-face communication, especially with salespeople, but this comes into play a great deal in coaching. The one thing I can tell you is think about always being on stage, and think about one thing. As a sales leader, you're most effective when your communication is a question that you ask, not something that you say. And in fact, a question that you ask is always more powerful than something that you say. Now finally, my favorite lever is creating positive emotional experiences. The thing about sales leadership is that it's fun. Being a sales manager for me was the best job that I ever had. I loved it. I enjoyed it every day. I had a group of salespeople around me who truly I enjoyed working with. And the fun thing about that is we got to go sell stuff. And when we closed business, we had an opportunity to recognize that achievement. When you positively reinforce what people do and you recognize that achievement, it builds immense loyalty and connections, and it creates an environment where people feel like they can win, and they'll go out there and win some more. It's that momentum. We've all seen that in sports, where a team that starts getting down on itself starts losing, and a team that feels up on itself starts winning. Well, it all starts with the leader. And it doesn't have to be big stuff. I mean, it can be little things like asking someone about something that happened with their kid, or remembering a birthday, or patting on the back when they did something, even small things. They did something well. It's the mindset of trying to find people doing things right versus trying to find people doing things wrong. It's most effective when it's personal, when you really think about how do I make something personal to people. And it's focused on recognizing their achievement. One of the most powerful things that I ever did as a sales leader is I had a buddy of mine who was the food and beverage manager at Raymond James Stadium down in Tampa, and this is where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers play. And we rented the end zone where the big pirate ship is. If you've never been there, you'll see it on TV, and we bought food and everything for them. And this was for our annual sales meeting, and this was really inexpensive. We spent, I think, less than $1,000 on the whole night. But what I did was I rented the Trinitron, the big screen at the end of the field, and when it was time to announce the winners of our Sales Achievement Awards, we put their names up on that big, huge screen on the end zone. We had a photographer there taking pictures of it, which we had framed and sent back to them. And we had an announcer who announced it over the entire PA system. Now, we're the only people in the stadium. And this was 10 years ago. And a month doesn't go by that somebody on that sales team, and there were several hundred people on that sales team, doesn't reach out to tell me that was one of the greatest experiences they ever had. It was really small. It was really personal. We didn't spend a whole lot of money on it. And as a sales leader, it gives you the opportunity to really motivate your salespeople. And this is the question that I get more than anything. I travel all over the world, and I speak to national sales meetings. I speak at leadership groups. I speak to CEOs, and I get this question all the time: what really motivates salespeople? And the answer is really simple. It's not money. It's not stock options. It is not that they get a bonus or any of those things that we mostly think. It's not having some catalog with a bunch of things that they can buy in it. What really motivates people, and this is a scientific social study, is achievement and the recognition of that achievement. It's not achievement in and of itself. It's the achievement of something and then somebody recognizing that achievement. Now, that achievement can be recognized with a big commission check, for sure. But if you just have achievement and you send a commission check in the mail and nobody pats you on the back, it doesn't mean as much. And if you just remember that in terms of motivating people, you can do anything, and you can move people to go and take over the world for you, or sell anything, or help you move your organization. And this works beyond just salespeople. It works for everybody. We're going to take some questions in just a moment, and I want to end with, this is an overview of a sales leadership development program that we put together for sales certification, so sales coach certification. And we're working with NAMA. We'll be in Las Vegas on the 24th and 25th, and we're putting on a program called Coaching for Improved Sales Performance. And in this 2-day event, you'll get a certified sales coach designation that you can put on your business card and your resume. So it's great for people who want to advance their careers. But more than that, you're going to learn a system and how to implement a sales management system that absolutely works. In fact, most people walk out of these programs and they're able to change their sales performance immediately. You'll learn how to diagnose the underlying reasons why you've got poor sales performance. So we'll teach you a process for analyzing that very quickly, and not only finding those places, but how do you develop a development program and a coaching program so that you can get those people to actually sell more. It'll help you eliminate the most frustrating part of sales management, which is the roller coaster sales pattern. So salespeople who sell a whole lot, and then they don't sell a whole lot, and then they sell a whole lot, and then they don't. It'll help you quickly turn around poor performing salespeople, and it'll help you focus on how to retain your top performers. This is an incredible class. It's 2 full days. Along with this, you get a 47-page leadership style report. So you'll have an opportunity to go through a process where we'll tell you who you are as a leader, where you have opportunities, where you have strengths, and also how you interact with other people. So it'll help you change that, and you'll get one-on-one coaching with that. And to get more information on this program, you can call Joanne, and I'm going to let Joanne kind of fill you in on some of the other issues. We've got some NAMA members who are on online with us right now. Her phone number is on screen, and we'll send this back to you as well. If you want to download the brochure, just go to certifiedsalescoach.org. That's certifiedsalescoach.org, and you can download the brochure. Joanne, you want to tell us a little bit more about this program as part of the One Show in Las Vegas?
Sure. Thanks, Jeb, for all that valuable information. And I wanted to mention to everyone that when you register for this exclusive sales session, you will receive a special discounted registration to attend the NAMA One Show, which is happening the afternoon of April 25th through April 27th. And the discounted badge for any registrant for this sales session is at a low price of $49. And what this badge gives you is access to the 3-day show, in which you'll be able to conduct business and observe innovative products and technologies. And it'll also give you access to all of our free education sessions, and they range from social media to innovative technologies and how to hire route drivers. So for a low price of just over $1,000, you're getting a 2-day sales course with Jeb, the leadership expert, and our show in Las Vegas. And if anyone has any questions or would like to register, feel free to send me an email or contact me directly with the information listed on the screen.
Super. Okay, so let's move on to some questions, and we'll go to a couple of easy ones. So one question is, will we be able to get a PDF copy of the presentation after the webinar? And Dave, to answer your question, yes, you will. And we'll also have a recording of the webinar that will go out as well, so you can actually hear the webinar itself. And so you just look for an email back from us on that. The next question is, what's the website for the goal setting sheet? Go to salesgravy.com. That's salesgravy.com, and then you'll see a link up there. I think it says free sales stuff. If not, just go to the store. But I think go to free sales stuff, and you'll see a couple of links in there. So I believe this is the top link. Go there, and you'll see the 2012 goal planning guide right at the top. It's free. Just go in there and download it, and it comes out as a PDF. I think it's about a 16-page ebook along with the goal sheeting format. And Brian, you asked this question. So one of the things that that I recommend with the goal sheeting process is look at it, and if the goal sheet structure doesn't necessarily work for you or your organization or your style, change it. Put it together in a way that works for you. The most important thing is that you go through the process of sitting with your salespeople and asking them questions that engage them and have them tell you what's important to them. Because again, if you focus on those things, you're going to be killing it with them. Rob writes that the material is right on. I appreciate it. Thank you, Rob. That's very kind, and I'm glad that this had an impact on you, and we hope to see for more of these webinars. If you have any more questions, by the way, this is a good time. Go to the question box. We're monitoring those, and anything is on. So ask those questions. I see more of those things coming in. Matthew says the 2012 guide is not there, 2009 only on the website. Tell you what I'll do, Matthew. On the goal sheeting guide, I'll send out to everybody a specific link to that guide so you can get it. It should be on Free Sales Stuff right up on the corner. The 2009 guide is there, but the 2000 guide is the one that you want. Let's see here. This is a question we got from Michael. Is it better to receive feedback and give it rather than just critique your people? So Michael, let's go back to feedback and talk about how that works. So in feedback, let's see if we can get to the feedback slide here. So if you can see the feedback slide here, the thing about feedback is that you've got three types of feedback. You've got neutral feedback, positive feedback, and negative feedback. So let's look at negative feedback. Negative feedback is the only time you really give negative feedback is when someone's about to hurt themselves or hurt somebody else. Negative feedback is stop doing that right now. Negative feedback causes incredible consternation, and it can ruin the trust and the loyalty that you build with your salespeople if you use it often. So negative feedback is not critiquing. It is just giving people, it's saying negative things to people and hurting them through that process. So it's really designed for, I can remember, one time my child was running out into the road, and I as any parent would, I screamed at him. And I got his attention, and I got him back off the road, but it took about an hour to calm him down because I scared him so bad. That's negative feedback. Positive feedback is great. You should give positive feedback as much as you can. Salespeople, they soak it up. The CFO of our company is baffled because salespeople need that pat on the head all the time. And she says, well, I patted them on the head 2 weeks ago. They're good. But the reality is that you pat them on the head 2 hours ago, they're coming back for more. Anytime you have an opportunity to give people positive feedback, you should. Critiquing people is different than feedback. Feedback helps you solve behavior problems. And for that, use neutral feedback. And I repeat, about half of them, not all of them, but half of your problems will be solved just by giving neutral feedback. If someone is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, if you just say, I would prefer it if you were to do this, and you did it in a neutral tone of voice, that's not critiquing, that's changing behavior. Critiquing is when you take the time to listen to them and ask them questions. And the best way to critique people and to develop them is to have them come up with the ideas themselves. If you're spending your time talking at your salesperson, they're probably not listening to you. But if you ask them a question and say, how could you have done that call better? And you stop and listen, they may say to you, well, I don't know. What do you think? And you go, well, what do you think? Tell me what you thought you did well there. And you get them talking, and they say, well, I did this, 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 and this. Well, what could you improve on? And they say this, 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 and this. You'll be amazed that most people know where they need to improve. They just can't see it. That's why you're a coach. Most people have a very clear understanding of where they are. If they get used to you telling them or critiquing them, they'll just let you talk, and then they'll go back and do whatever they were doing before. So just to cap that off, or to put an end cap on that, feedback is changing behavior by providing very specific, on the job, in the moment information that will help the person change their behavior. Critiquing is really much more of coaching, and the best way to critique is by asking questions, not necessarily through providing feedback. I hope that answers your question. Let me go up here and see where we are here. So that's Michael. So it says in Dr. Phil McGraw's book, Life Strategies, he also talks about the importance of a leader to esteem his or her employees. So Brenda asked this question, and Brenda, Dr. Phil's exactly right. The best way to build up the self-esteem of your people is by providing a positive feedback and positive emotional experiences by catching them doing things right and telling them specifically what they did right. So I believe in tough coaching. I don't believe in I'm not a big kumbaya person. I'm tough on people. I hold people to a really high standard, but I'm constantly telling people when they do things right. I'm constantly giving feedback when we need to change behavior. And then I spend time coaching when I've got someone that I really need to spend some time with, getting them to see it from their standpoint and versus me telling them. And coaching takes time because you've got to ask questions. But helping build up the self-esteem of your people, especially your salespeople, is critical. That's what every coach does. And so positive feedback by helping them focus on their goals. By being the leader, we talked about leadership is shaping the workplace. One of the best ways you can build up the self-esteem of your people is to give them the opportunity to see that they can succeed and to give them an opportunity to see that there's worthwhile work there. And so setting the vision for your team, that's critically important. Thanks, Mike. Mike says this has been incredibly helpful, and thanks for the insights. Jonah, I will send you the link for the 2012 goal sheeting guide. I don't know why you're having a problem there, but we'll send that directly to you. Jerry asked what commission structure seems to work the best. And Jerry, I'll tell you what, my email address is jeb@salesgravy.com. That's jeb@salesgravy.com. My phone number is 706-986-9330. That's a really long question because there's so many variables there, and sales compensation is a big deal for a lot of companies. If you want to reach out to me independently, we can maybe grab a few minutes and I'll tell you what my ideas are. That's probably, I could sit here for another 2 or 3 hours answering that question. Diana says, face-to-face communication, understanding that face-to-face communication is desired. What is the best way to communicate with a remote staff effectively? Great question, Diana. So if you've got a remote staff, of course, the telephone is the closest thing you can get for face-to-face. Email is the least desirable, and if you're going to use email, in my book, People Buy You, there's a whole section on how to use email. I think it's in the connection chapter in People Buy You, but you can check that out there. But the key thing, Diana, is that you want to have regular phone conversations. That's why you don't have a daily huddle. So, and in some cases with a new sales organization, you might have it twice a day. So let's say at 9 o'clock in the morning, you get together, you set the tone for the day. At 12 o'clock, you ask how everybody's doing. On Monday morning, you have a conference call. So we're using a program called GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar. With GoToWebinar or GoToMeeting, you can actually put everybody's face on so you can do video calls. I would use Skype as much as possible. If you're doing your one-on-ones, just use Skype so you can see each other. There's a big difference when you can see each other's faces. But the key thing, Diana, I think is staying consistently connected to them, but having a consistent sales management process. See here, Mike says, do you have any recommendations on an ROI tool or approach for software sales that is better received than a standard calculator with basic, more obvious metrics? Can you point me somewhere for more direction? And Mike, I'm going to have to tell you that I don't think I can. We could probably take that offline. I'm not quite sure exactly what the question is. I definitely think that from an ROI tool that's important for, especially in the sales process, for helping people create some tangibility around an intangible product like software. But I got to tell you, that's a little bit outside of my area of expertise. But if you want to reach out to me, again, jeb@salesgravy.com, I can do my best to point you in the right direction. Diana says the compensation question might be interesting for other folks too. Diana, I will take you up on that, and maybe I'll find an expert in compensation, and we can do a future webinar on that. Kevin's asked, this is an interesting question here, do you think that mass texting your sales team about individual success is a good way to promote positivity? Absolutely. I think any time that you can recognize salespeople in front of other people, I think you're right on the money. Whether it's mass texting or mass emailing or whatever you do that allows you to to get in front of your folks and tell them that they're doing a great job, it works. It's no different than my story about going to Tampa and taking our entire sales team and putting up our winners' names on the big scoreboard. This is Kevin, and I'll leave you guys with that. Creating positive emotional experiences is the most important thing you can do as a sales manager outside of having a consistent system of developing them, because it means everything to salespeople to be recognized in front of their peers. Remember, you want to motivate your salespeople. Achievement, help them achieve, position them to win, and recognize that achievement in front of as many people as you can. Up on screen, I've got my 2 books, People Buy You. It's our #1 bestseller. Our brand new book, People Follow You. Both are available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble. People Follow You has I think last 10 weeks in a row, the #1 bestseller in airports of all places. So please feel free to check those things out. And again, you can get me at Jeb@salesgravy.com. I've got one more question that just came in. Do you think one of the issues I face in apparel sales is the quantity of orders turned in by multi-line reps. Fairly frequently, they may be from customers who are unethical, don't take their goods we make for them if they don't feel like it, or go in and out of having credit. Any tips on managing the situation? Yeah, I think that's, General, I think that's part of your sales leadership process is you've got to have a system so that when people bring you customers, there's a vetting process on the back end that doesn't interfere with selling on the front end. And this is always a problem in sales. As salespeople get paid to sell, they're going to go out and bring you everything. So if you don't have a process for dealing with that positively with a salesperson that encourages them to keep selling, but also manages your business right, it'll end up hurting your business. And I tell people all the time, the reason why we have CFOs and operators is because if salespeople were left to their own I guess fruition or whatever, they'd be out selling everything. That's what we get paid to do. So the big thing for you is having that back end. Well, thank you guys very much. Joanne, thank you and you and NAMA for sponsoring this webinar. I think that we've got some good ideas, some good questions. And again, folks, we'll have this information coming back out to you this week, and I hope to see you all in Vegas. Joanne, any last words?
No, just wanted to thank everyone for participating on the call, and thank you, Jeb, for this valuable information. And if anyone has any questions or wants to register for the program, please email me at jdinardis@vending.org or go to our website for my contact information at vending.org.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.